Dwayne, what in Edwin, so like what features, which components of Edwin do you see being useful for teachers to use for this type of teaching?
We hit the nail on the head. I'm a big fan of collections, a huge fan. I think it's great because you start off with a digital sandbox that's safe, and then you can add to that digital sandbox by going outside and bringing things inside. One of the projects that I actually have going, and I'd love if there are any teachers out there that would love to hop on this project that they have grade 6 or grade 7, please reach out to me. But one of the projects that I think is great is having projects go across schools. So not just inside the class, but trying to figure out, how do we have these projects go across schools, right? And how do we have it go across countries, right?
Oh, I love that.
Or provinces. And so the projects need to be student generated. If we teach students how to work through a design thinking framework on any particular topic, we can have them create their own collection based on a design thinking framework. And we can have them reflect on that. One of the things that I have my son do is, as he's going through and he's creating a collection, he reflects. So he does a vlog on what he's learned, like what's interesting, what are some of the questions, some of the things that what's a challenge that he ran into, as he's putting all this together. And the idea is for us to create a collection to hand to another student. Say, okay, well, could this other student go through the collection that you've created? But I want you to create it like you like it. Don't create it like you think a teacher would like it, right? And so what are some of the things that you can go, so he started to find all these YouTubers that are big engineers and doing things on flight, and say, oh, I'm going to pull this in, and this is going to go with this piece, and this fits into my project here, and here's a video of my trail makers. So maybe if a kid has trail makers out there, they can, use this project to create a plane and trail makers, right? Which is bled into our space, because now it's like, well, can we make a rocket in there that will actually fly? And so now you can see that it's connecting. So to me, I think that would be the best feature, because it allows students to say, look, here's the goal. The goal is you need to find this out, right? Go find it, right? I'm not going to walk you through everything. I want you to go walk through, and I want you to be very, very familiar with the idea of, you don't have to get this right all the way through. You get stuck on something, you need to come back to me with about 10 questions written down, right? Organized questions. I don't want, what's this, or what's this? No, you get your questions down and you come back and you say, let's have a meeting. We sit back and we say, these are my questions, right? Based on the Q chart, these are questions I need answered. And the more and more they get accustomed to that process, the better.
Yes, I agree. Once you throw them into it, it's just a matter of time. And I love the idea of doing that vlog of the process. One of my questions I was going to ask you is, like, how do we assess these projects, and what are some alternative assessment ideas? I think that tracking the process is way more powerful to assess than, sometimes the outcome. Like, what were your challenges? What were your questions along the way? I love that idea. And I also don't know why I've never thought of it, but students sharing their collections with students, especially in other classes or in other continents or like globally, is such a powerful way for them to share and collaborate. I think that's a fantastic idea. I think that, students creating the collection and sharing with the teacher, that's okay. But where the money is, that powerful moment is now sharing it with your peers and learning from each other. So I think that was like a big aha moment for me.
So one of the things that, one of the things that we're doing, so I have a project called Tomorrow Now Learning Lab. And one of the things that we're doing at Tomorrow Now Learning Lab is connecting students across countries.
Right.
And we're doing that. So we actually have a physical space, but we also have a virtual classroom. And that virtual classroom is in VR. It's on 2 dimensions, but it's a space where I can bring in 50 students at a time from anywhere on the planet once they have a device and an internet connection. I can bring in Edwin into that space. I can bring in YouTube into that space. I can bring a bunch of different things into that space. And it looks like, they're like Roblox almost, right? Like they're like Roblox characters in this room. And what you find is you're able to now get very different perspectives because people in different places are going to be thinking differently, right? Like their realities are different, but there are also lots of things that are very similar, right? A lot of people are playing Roblox, for example, right? I think is pretty interesting. But one of the things that I found is, there are two professors out of the University of Toronto, and we use their software back to assessment. And what we do is you can now say, okay, here's a success criteria. You start teaching kids how to go through, how do you match a success criteria to what this is based on the iteration that it is. And if you can do that anonymously, so it's not, this is my friend, so I got to give him an A. If you can do it anonymously, you're
assessing
able,
peers.
Right. So, but you're doing 3 at a time, 3 or 4 at a time. And the reason that you're doing that is because there are a couple of things that you want to do. A, you want to know where you are, right? Like, where am I in this process? Have I given my best shot? If I don't know what my best is, I don't know what a best shot can look like, it's going to be very difficult, right? But now you're able to see, oh, okay. You're also able to critically start thinking, does it match, right? And with the software, you're also able to look and say, okay, I'm going to look at the feedback and I'm going to decide, is this feedback valuable to me? And can I use it? Or is this feedback not valuable to me? I completely disagree with what the person said, and I'm not going to use it. But that process is very, very valuable on the road because you're now able to see other people's work and assess that. And you're now able to look at the assessments coming back to what you're doing, and you're able to reflect on that and create iterations. So to me, I think, when people think about how do you assess in the real world? You assess based on the iteration, right? You assess based on, think of anything, we're using Google Meet. Once upon a time, I remember Gmail when it first came out, it's horrible. But the main component was really, really valuable. The main component of Gmail, they were the first email to give you a thread. So it was the first time that you can just scroll and see what was the last thing that you said. And that valuable component was enough to make it extremely sticky, even though the interface was horrible, the UI was horrible, and we could continuously see the iterations of that. So now that's how you assess, do I use Gmail versus Hotmail, right? And so I think it's the same thing with students. It's to get them into that process. The real choke point, is really the purpose of school and where it ends. And what's the purpose of it? And that's a choke point. And when we come back to what the actual purpose of school is, we'll start to free ourselves from that choke point. And once that happens, then we'll be able to unlock learning.